This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, cowardly womanizers? This is Steven, your host from Fantology, along with my lifelong friend Josh, to talk about Jalen, the main character, the cowardly womanizer from The Prince of Fools. I guess he is the Prince of Fools by Mark Lawrence. Josh, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here to talk about another Mark Lawrence book. We covered the Broken Empire trilogy, so go check those out if you haven't yet. And now we're here to talk about the Prince of Fools, and I'm excited.
Yeah, so he wrote this, Red Queen's War. This is the Red Queen's War trilogy.
Yeah.
Prince of Fools is the first one. So this is the follow-up to the Broken Empire. It happens concurrently. There's some crossovers. It's a whole Mark Lawrence extended universe type thing. And you've also read some of his other books, right? Another one of his trilogies.
Yeah, I actually haven't finished the third book of the Red Sister trilogy.
Okay.
I for whatever reason, I just got kind of interrupted after I kind of wanted to take some time between the second and third book because I read the first two kind of quickly. So I wanted to take some time, and then like it's still on my TBR and I'm gonna read it, but maybe I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta find a good time to read it.
Okay. So let's actually start maybe with a non-spoiler thing, because I think at least in our community, there's a lot that have read The Broken Empire, but haven't gotten into Red Queen's War. And there are some big differences in tone. And so how would you recommend, or how would you compare the series? Let's say, assuming someone's read The Broken Empire, or maybe someone coming into Lawrence for the first time, how would you describe this book, at least Prince of Fools?
Well, first, let me plug a little bit of our community. We did a read along on this on our Discord, or like a book club thing. On our Discord, we have a book club where we there's maybe 7 to 12 people. I don't know, maybe that
might be a little generous.
It might be,
it's probably more like 5 on average.
Yeah,
but
anyway,
it'd be nice to get up to that number.
Yeah, but like, it's not a ton of people that kind of read and either just chat about it, or we try and organize 2 sessions, to talk about each book that we read, like live on chat. So if you're interested in that, jump on our Discord. Links are in the description. And
if you're interested, we are very open to any suggestions. So
yeah,
if you're wanting to read a book and want some people want to just nerd out with you while you're doing it, like, this is a good place for that.
Yep. And our Discord in general, I feel like is a good place for it. But specifically the book club on there is a lot of fun, and we're looking for new people to come join. So okay, so back to your question about kind of a non-spoiler thought about this, somebody that's so in some weird ways, this is almost a better starting off point for Mark Lawrence's works if you haven't read any of his before and you're not sure you're going to love the grimdark, because this is, while there are certainly grimdark moments of this, there's a lot less than in the Broken Empire trilogy. This is much more lighthearted. The protagonist is actually a likable character, whereas Jorg, the protag, kind of, I guess if you can call him that, the main point of view character, is not very likable throughout.
I mean, he's the protagonist and the antagonist almost, you could say. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, in some ways this is a better starting off point for people that aren't so sure that they're going to love the world that, or the grimdark elements of Mark Lawrence's works. Having said that,
I think a lot of people probably bounce off of the Broken Empire right at the beginning because they're like, this is really dark, and some people like that. And there's a lot. I mean, the Broken Empire has a lot of positives to it. It's a really interesting look at some very dark, aspects of human nature, and that doesn't mean it's not worth reading, but it does mean that it can be harder for some.
Yeah. So maybe if you bounced off the first couple chapters of Broken Empire, maybe give this a shot if you still feel like you've heard praise from Mark Lawrence. A lot of the good things about Broken Empire are still contained in Red Queen's War. Having said that, you will definitely miss out on some of the more lore-y if that's a word, aspects, like more lore driven aspects of the story,
Yeah.
that it definitely helps to have read Broken
Well,
Empire.
I mean, at least through the first book, and this is the discussion. Maybe we can kind of speculate on where the series is going because we've only read the first books. But
Yeah.
I
This
imagine
is still we're keeping this still spoiler. We're still spoiler free,
right. Yeah, keeping this spoiler free. But I imagine the lore that we learn about. So in Broken Empire, you learn a lot about the world and the lore and this big plot line going on. I imagine that we're gonna get more of that same story in the Red Queen's War. But like you say, thus far, there's a lot of missing details that we understand, having read the Broken Empire, that those details are not yet filled in at this point in the Red Queen's War. But it's the first of a trilogy, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, there it is, and I think there was somebody that was reading along with us that this was the first Mark Lawrence book that he had read, and he was able to pick up on some things that were contained in the Broken Empire, and so I think it's definitely like a valid way to approach these works.
Yeah, and not only lore, but there's also some like direct crossovers, like we'll just say that much,
but not very long,
so
like a few chapters, if that, right? Like it's not a ton. You won't be like utterly confused.
Yeah, they're Easter eggs
going on. Yeah,
they're definitely Easter eggs, but it's fun to catch those Easter eggs.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
that's why we like these extended universes.
Yeah. All right. So other non-spoilery thoughts, if you're looking to jump in on this, the protagonist,
in general, like what kind of book is this?
Yeah. So the protag is really interesting. Like you said, he's a woman. He's a how did you describe him? A cowardly womanizer who you kind of get the sense that he's not a totally reliable narrator, and that's mostly shown in the fact that he does not see himself as doing acts of valor or like honor. He's kind of talks down about himself when relating events that he's done. There is an event that he kind of just said, I was just wildly throwing my sword around and I happened to kill 15 people or whatever, and now he's known as like the what is it, like the
I don't remember exactly
this is all like first generation stuff, but
right
but so anyway, and but he's really funny. Like his voice is hilarious, and then he's paired with this Viking who is also very funny, but also is just a lot more brutal. And like if you just picture like a stereotypical Viking, that's what is on a mission of revenge,
brooding, silent,
and they're
big, strong warrior. No one, if you get in his way, you're gonna die type guy.
And they're paired through
a magical connection. Yeah, that's what we'll say so far. There's a running gag throughout. There's a lot of humor throughout. I think my main pitch for this book is Mark Lawrence is a great author, and we saw that in the Broken Empire, but I feel like he's able to more purely showcase his writing in this book because there's not the same layer of, grimdark filth that some readers are going to bounce off of. And so he can kind of keep it more lighthearted and really let that like witty, sarcastic tone shine, which he does. I mean, there's a lot of sarcasm, a lot of wit throughout the Broken Empire. But I think I enjoyed this book more from just from a pure enjoyment standpoint. I was able to just more easily get into this one than the Broken Empire books.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. A lot more approachable, and he kind of had what's the saying? He had something in his teeth. He had cut his teeth on the Broken Empire trilogy.
Okay.
Right. And then I think that he kind of sanded off some of the rustier parts of his writing in terms of like prose and everything. It's just and the pacing and plotting just seems a little bit tighter in this book. Anyway, I just recommend if you think that what we've talked about sounds interesting, I
Yeah.
recommend it. Yeah.
What other books would you compare the Prince of Fools to? Any other fantasy books out there that you'd comp?
Maybe not a book as a whole, but he kind of reminds me of if the whole Wheel of Time book series was just centered around Matt and his
Okay.
exploits.
Sure. Okay.
Maybe from books 4 on in the Wheel of Time.
Similar type of character. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we read The Black Tongue Thief last year. It's a little bit like that in terms of like the lighter tone and kind of a story that's centered on moving around a map. They kind of most of the story is going from place to place and having things happen at those places.
A travelogue narrative type story with a lot of witty humor throughout, a lot of sarcasm. Yeah.
You have any books you think?
I was also thinking Black Tongue Thief. The bromance kind of reminds me a little bit of Lies of Locke Lamora, and in both cases you have characters kind of going around doing clever things. The stories themselves are pretty different, but just the general tone I think is a little bit similar. Both kind of darker. This one still does have a lot of darker elements to it.
It does.
Don't think it's going to be like a fun romp just because we said it was lighter than the Broken Empire. That doesn't make it light.
I would still classify it as grimdark, but it's not as dark as Broken Empire. So yeah.
Okay. I think that covers. Let's call that our non-spoiler section. So we'll jump into it now. We'll talk about the plot. So let's start by where do you want to start? Do you want to start with characters and just kind of work your way through?
Yeah, to me, characters are by far the best part of this book. I'm just gonna come out there and say it. The plot, I wasn't totally enthused about the plot, but I think from page 1, the characters were intriguing and fun, and I enjoyed being in each of their heads respectively. And so for me, the standout of this book was the character work,
and specifically Jalen and Snorri.
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
I guess I'm saying Jalen. Maybe it's Jalen. Yeah, it might be Jalen.
I'm trying to think how the narrator said it. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a good point, is that they were kind of the two best, like besides them, none of the other characters were really all that interesting.
Yeah. But it was a personal narrative, and it was a 400 page book.
Right. So having two characters, I would for sure rather take two characters really well fleshed out, that who they are, and they're you can read 1 or 2 lines from them, know what character it is, than not fleshing them out as well and having some side characters here well that a little bit better. That's the balance that I tend to err on. I think that the character work with John or Jalen, or however we say his name, and Snorri, by far the best part of this book. It's gonna be what I remember about this book. And
it's probably the reason why I would want to continue reading. I want to figure out what happens. I'm gonna say Jalen. I want to see what's gonna happen with Jalen and Snorri.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, you want to see, because so are we jumping into spoilers now, or are we still? So for sure, like there's they become best friends, right? And kind of like they're brothers, but
begrudgingly,
which is what's great about it. But you still get the sense that like they still would betray each other if push came to shove. Yeah, at least I did. Like I don't think that I guess push did come to shove, but push didn't come to like it stopped short of being like the only way to get out of the situation is to betray each other. They were definitely tempted to, and the opportunity arose, and both of them showed that they value that relationship and weren't going to, but it's left ambiguous, like if one of them's going down the darker path, which it looks like Snorri might be at the end of the book, then I think that John would have an issue with that.
I would be honestly, I would be shocked if one of them was to actually betray the other and that, the plot continued in that way, and there was no redemption, because it seemed like the story, the way that it was being structured, and the promise of the characters was, this Jalan guy is a coward and he's a jerk, and he, is just in it for the women and the sex and the money or whatever. But really underneath all of that, he's got a heart of gold, and he's one of those types of characters, right? And it just continued to kind of chip away, like, not hammer away, but it continued to kind of like drop little hints of like, this is who this character really is at his core. I would be surprised if he was ever to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna take my, like, curse is lifted, whatever, see ya, Snorri. I think at this point he's changed over these, the course of these 100 pages, and seems like he's on a more heroic path. However, now that he has the devil type thing, the angel devil swap, will he go down this darker path in the second book? I would guess that in the second book he goes down a darker path, but doesn't do anything that is so, reprehensible that he cannot be redeemed, and is able to kind of turn things around. And in the third book, they come together, whatever. And I'm not really sure where the plot is going, actually. I mean, we know what happens in the Broken Empire. I'm not really sure where this plot is going specifically, but with these two characters, I see them attached enough. I can't see a betrayal. I can't see a total dark path for either.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not like banking my my Fantology guarantee on this, but I think that that there's a chance that I don't think that their relationship is to the point yet where they are solely loyal to each other. But
I mean, it's interesting because compared to like a George R. R. Martin story where the characters could very well turn each other, and we would call both of these stories grimdark, I just feel like there's like a lighter, at the core, the Red Queen's War has a lighter,
more hopeful
sense to it.
Undertone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe that's how I would clarify the difference between Broken Empire and Red Queen's War so far. I mean, we've read one of the 3 books here, but Broken Empire, definitely no like hopeful lighter core, but here the characters seem like decent people at their cores, where Jorg is definitely not a decent person in any aspect of himself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's my analysis.
Okay, so there's character. Anything else about character you want to talk about? Like, is there anything that didn't work for you?
I really liked, so I'll dodge that question, and I'll say something that I did like was the way that Snorri was introduced, and then throughout the course you got the snippets of his backstory, and you got more and more details. It might have been a little contrived to think that, oh, he's going to tell this story and then leave off and pick it up again, and get to a crucial point and leave off. But it makes for a good narrative structure.
And again, you go back to the fact that this is a first-person story, and I don't want to do spoilers for Broken Empire, but like there is a chance that we get to see how this is being written, and so there's a chance that this is like a narrative decision made by Jalan, like throughout the course of him relaying this first-person narrative. Does that make sense?
Actually, no, I didn't follow that.
Okay, so this is a first-person story, right? So John's saying, I did this, I did that, right? Uh-huh. And so we might get to see how he's actually writing this down, right?
Oh, sure. Okay. Kind of
like how the character John is relaying these events within the series. And so
do you just mean because like at the end of the Broken Empire books, it has a little thing where Georg is like writing out his story. And,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so maybe
a little bit of a sure. Okay.
So we'll maybe see that John's like taking some narrative licenses, and he was manipulating like the event. He was making it seem a little bit more cliffhanger.
You suspect there may be a framing,
a narrative, framing thing that would justify these things. But anyway, that's kind of convoluted. It doesn't really matter. I agree that like it made it more compelling, and so it is what it is.
And it made you really care about Snorri. he's introduced as this, hulking Northman who is he's put in the fighting pits, and he kills a bear right
That was
off the
awesome.
beginning. It's yeah. And so you don't necessarily like fall in love with him as a character because like this guy's a savage, but then as you get his backstory and you connect with his his family and everything that's happened to him, you slowly love him more and more. And it's interesting because I think you also slowly, at least for me, get more and more attached to Jalen. But that one came as like getting deeper into who he was, even though, but you already had his backstory, so you just kind of got more and more comfortable, and you realize that maybe there is some goodness inside of him. This is my interpretation. Some people don't like in our book club. Some were just like, no, I don't like Jalen. Like this guy's a jerk. I have more hopes for him. I think he's going in good directions, even though he's got the devil on his shoulder now.
So I think that the beginning of this book is a masterclass in how to introduce characters. You get Jalen, like what did he do? He was like doing something where he was like hitting on a girl, and
right. I mean, he's like caught and
by this woman's brother.
Yeah, right. Like, he's got to jump out the window, and run. Yeah, and flee. With only his dignity.
Yeah,
with his maybe not with his dignity, but nothing. Yeah,
right. And so you get this whole thing where he runs, and then you see that he's being confronted by person, or he owes a bunch of money to this
right
to this bookie. Mm-hmm. and then in the background of this, you're seeing this huge savage kill a bear, and you're immediately shown that this guy is like a force to be reckoned with, and then they collide a half chapter later, and you're just like every single part of that pacing of those first few chapters was so expertly done to introduce the core of these characters to you and help them be memorable. And I think that was like, in terms of just a technical feat, I was impressed with it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I hadn't thought about the opening that strongly, but I agree. It's totally it's 100% show don't tell writing, where it's not like I'm Jalen, I'm cowardly. It's like, hey, I'm jumping out the window because I've been caught with this woman, and now here I am trying to hide from my responsibilities in the court, and now here I am being called up on my debts, so I'm going to try to get this Northman to fight for me in the pits. And rather than one thing he does is like, rather than just let Snorri go, because Snorri was first a slave captured, and then he was going to just be like let go because he wasn't really enslaved. Instead of doing that, he says, actually, you need to report to the fighting pits for me. Kind of gets you a glimpse at his character right away.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know, can we move on from, should we talk about the plot at all? This is not as favorable.
Yes,
the plot,
yes, but you're not as into the plot. Tell us why.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I was just never that compelled to see. Like, I of course wanted to know what the curse was about. I wanted to know what happened to Snorri's family. I wanted to know these things, but they were just kind of questions that were being posed that I wasn't theorizing a ton about as we were going through, because I felt like they would just be resolved, which they kind of were in satisfying ways, granted, but like, I just guessed that I didn't feel like me figuring out the answers to these questions was going to help me in the book, like help me figure out the plot of the book. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but like, I feel like when you're reading some books, Sanderson's a good example of this, where if you figure like a nugget out, then that makes like the rest of the reading experience like better, because you're like, oh, I know what's going on with this, or I think I know what's going on with this, and it makes you more excited to find out if what you thought is correct. Whereas with this one, I was like, I think I know what happened with Snorri's family, but if I'm wrong, then it's not that big of a deal. If I'm right, then it's not that big of a deal. So
there wasn't as much of a running mystery for you. You prefer a larger, maybe more convoluted plot where everything's kind of tying in different ways, and you're trying to, some things are revealed, which leads to additional questions, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I guess. And this is where this kind of is kind of like the Black Tongue Thief, where I don't obviously need that every single time, but and it's just like thinking back, we read this book about a month ago. It's been a bit of time to record it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can tell you a lot about the characters, but I can't tell you, I don't remember a whole ton of the plot. Like in terms of the sequence of like which place they went to this place, then this place, then
Yeah.
this happened, then that happened. Like I remember some scenes, the first time that like, but none of them were like that stand out where I'm like, this is a jaw-dropping, amazing scene that's been set up by everything that comes before. That happens with the character work, but doesn't really happen with the plot.
Okay, I agree with that. I mean, so would you say this is similar? Is the Broken Empire or the what's the name of the sister series? Is it
The
Holy
Red Sister?
Book of the Ancestor.
Yeah, Book of the Answers.
Yeah. Are those similar, would you say, in terms of the way that the plot moves along?
So I'll try and keep this fast. Broken Empire, I feel like tries to do more convoluted things, but I wasn't that impressed with the plotting in that series either. I felt like it tried to tie in a bunch of different things, and it used different narrative styles to varying degrees of success in my mind, with like the flashbacks and flash forwards and the different perspective and stuff. And I like a lot of what it did, but some of it I don't think entirely worked. Go watch our reviews, if you want to get more of my thoughts on that. But and then the Book of the Ancestor, and mind you, I've only read the first two, but I feel like the plot is a lot tighter on that. Like it, I feel like you have a better idea, and you're wondering more about the different factions that are at play. And so I think that in the I've read 3, 2, 1 books, right? I've read all of Broken Empire. I've read 2 of Red Sister. I've only read 1 of these, but from what I've read, I think that Book of the Ancestor has the most intriguing plot line. This has the best characters, and Broken Empire probably has the best like making you think, reframing what you see as like as grimdark, and so yeah.
Okay, interesting. I would say in the Prince of Fools, at least, it seems like we're presented the plots in like chunks of 5 chapters or so. Like here we are at the first location. I think I can't remember the name of the city. It's like Champagne or something like that. Here we are at this nice city in the court, and now everything's gonna go awry, and now we're gonna run away, Snorri and Jolan, and the magic connects them and everything. And then after that, they travel for a while, and then they have this meetup with Edris Dean, right? He's the mercenary guy, and then they continue to work their way towards Krath City, and they have this cool fight up in the mountains. And then after that, they kind of, anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's just like these chunks of little plot pieces. And yes, it's connected, but it's almost really just connected by the fact that our characters are the ones moving through all of it. Like there's no big, I mean, there's some running threads of, the dead king, and these people are coming back to life, and Snorri's family, and we're getting some threads. It's not terrible by any means.
Right.
It's just not quite as connected as maybe you would like to see.
Yeah. And the Red Queen and the curse, and where the curse is coming from, and what's going to happen with the curse. Those are all interesting questions, but they're not super compelling. Again, you just feel like you're going to find out. And I don't know.
Which means that when we get to the end, it is a climax and it is exciting, but it's not a huge culmination of like all the plot points that have happened. It's just kind of like, okay, here we are. We've got to our destination, and big fight, cool things happen.
It's revealed why Snorri, is that why he is in terms of his family. You get kind of the secrets out on that, which it wasn't exactly what I guessed, but I kind of figured that he was just going for revenge and didn't have a whole lot of hope of rescuing his family. But I didn't see that his wife was going to be pregnant and her unborn child was going to become like a demon type creature spawn thing.
And I mean, and that was foreshadowed with the fight that they had with the demon that got run over by the elephant.
so these are cool things. Like that's what I'm saying. Like none of it is bad. It's just some of it is kind of not the reason why you read the book, I guess.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Sure.
It's not why I would recommend reading it.
And it could be a preference thing. I mean, we both like, a lot of our favorite books are longer, super epic, things like Sanderson, for example, which, not everyone enjoys as much. Some people like a more streamlined, this is almost like a thriller type story where it's really just action throughout, and there's enough of a plot, enough of a mystery to kind of drive things forward. But at the same time, they're going towards a destination to try to resolve the conflict, and it's a fairly straightforward goal for our heroes, at least.
Yeah.
With some hints of this larger conflict with the dead king, and the people coming back to life and everything. And I want to kind of talk about this, but without doing spoilers for Broken Empires, which may be a little tricky.
If we have to spoil it, we'll tell you. Yeah.
But so the thing is, I like this. I like this way of introducing the dead king. And granted, I'm speculating on what happens in the rest of the Red Queen's War. I don't know, but I like this setup better, because in the Broken Empire, there's a similar conflict, but it doesn't become like the main conflict right away. It doesn't become the main thing as quickly as it seems to be the main thing here in the Red Queen's War. And granted, in the first book, the dead king is not the adversary. It's Broken Ore and getting back to Snorri's family and all that. But you get a sense that these are, tools in these are pawns in a larger thing.
And they actually have to fight them a lot more often than what happened. Yeah.
Right. So in Broken Empire, this becomes a big thing, but not till later in the series. And it's almost like, this is the big thing that's going on here. Okay. Whereas here in the Red Queen's War, it seems like it's maybe a more natural progression towards the end of the trilogy.
Okay, so and this is like Game of Thrones, where the seasons like 1 through 4, like you're kind of showing like all these White Walkers and they're like this looming presence, and it's really interestingly done. And then like the last few seasons, then all of a sudden like the White Walkers just start like jumping out all over the place, and then it's resolved really quickly. And it doesn't end up.
The Red Queen's War is, or
I feel like the Red Queen's War is kind of, or I feel like Broken Empire is kind of more like the last few seasons of Game of Thrones, where this was in the background all the time and then just gets like resolved super quickly, and you realize it's kind of like a red herring in a lot of ways.
Well, I don't think it was a red herring in the Broken Empire. It's certainly a better resolution than how they resolved the White Walkers in the TV show.
But I feel like this is I don't know. Just here, I feel like this book had a lot more like, you feel the presence of them when they come on screen,
Okay.
And they feel like a threat. Especially because at the beginning of the book, John was like, "Oh, we can just ride in with our cavalry and just like mow them down. It's not even a threat at all." And then by the end of the book, he's like going up against these demon spawn things that are like, about to, killing this whole band of warriors of like these Northmen. So anyway.
Yeah, I could see that. And I feel like we could get into this more, but I don't want to do spoilers for Broken Empire, because I know there's some that haven't read it. So hopefully nothing that we said was too much of a spoiler. I don't think it was. I think we just kind of talked about it loosely enough where it's okay, but yell at us in the comments if you're mad. Sorry.
Hopefully people clicked off if they felt like we waded into that really slowly. So
so what are some plot points that, like, what are the things that you did remember? Because I know you said that the plot wasn't super compelling, but there were some big moments that were well written and exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought that, like you mentioned, the battle in the mountains where where they like fight all these people, and you get the reveal that they're going to come back to life, and that as you kill more of them, the last one gets stronger. That was really cool. You find out that Jean can heal, but it takes a lot out of him, and so you kind of get these power reveals going on. enjoyed the scenes with the Handcraft Easter eggs. You know, you get the that was that was Catherine that he was hitting on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it was said straight up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, I thought so. I just was.
Well, he sees. So Catherine's the one that kicks him in the balls.
Yeah, right. That's what I was. He goes up and
Yeah.
tries to. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I got this." Da da da.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's. What did he say? Like, there's no. It's not fair how women can induce such pain with just a few mere inches of something like that, right?
Yeah. It was funny.
It was funny. So I like that, right? Like that totally fits with Catherine, the Catherine that we know. Snorri's flashbacks were always really compelling to me. You know, it's heartbreaking to see him lose his family, especially, you know, like he's that scene at the river with him, you know, his daughter losing her stuffed animal or something in the river. Like, I don't know, like these things serve to really humanize Snorri for me. And then the climax was interesting with them sneaking into this keep that was abandoned, and you know, I feel like the setting was interesting going into the climax. Them like being super cold. It felt like, you know, a dungeon. I've been playing Elden Ring, and kind of felt like a dungeon in Elden Ring.
I could see that. Sure.
Where like you never knew what was going to be around the next corner, but you know, you couldn't be too sure that it wasn't just gonna jump out and kill you. But that's kind of it. Like, I don't know, those are the highlights for me. I have a worst of the best I'll wait on, but that's
so there were some plot points that didn't even really stick in your memory, like the whole train tunnel thing and Skillfire the witch down there. Like that was one that, you know, just kind of, it felt like filler in the middle of the book. Like, we got to get them through here, and they're gonna like get some prophecy type stuff, and train tunnels are funny to think about if these guys don't know what trains are.
Right. Yeah. That kind of stuff never was super compelling to me in Broken Empire either. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is like Earth, you know, Earth in a couple thousand years or whatever. But yeah.
That setting wasn't, I think the setting's cool.
The setting is cool. I like it, but like I don't whenever it doesn't really like shock me when they're in like the train tunnels, you know. It's just like, okay, so this is kind of the device he's using now, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there are parts in the Broken Empire where they're, again, don't want to do spoilers.
Yeah, let's not do spoilers.
You know, there are similar types of chapter groups where they go off and do things like this, and yeah, I agree, it's not super memorable. Yeah.
What about you? What was your reaction?
I think that fight with Edristine up in the mountains, like you said, that was a highlight. That one was really good. And then when they're meeting up with the Quins, right? Their quintuplets, I think there's 8 of them. Yeah. Okay,
wait. Just the twinism is real there. Okay, when for those of you who don't know, Ben and I, if this is like somehow the first episode of Anthology you're watching, I have a twin brother that does this with me, and we always joke about like people being, you know, biased against twins or whatever. If a twin dies, if one of the twins die, they're still a twin. It just doesn't like you don't suddenly stop being a twin if your twin dies. So, in my opinion, at least from my lived experience of being a twin, I don't feel like if my twin brother were to die, I would not be a twin anymore. Just like if you're anyway, go ahead.
Well, isn't that what happens in the book? Like, they're still like the Quins.
No, but then he
even
always
though they die.
No, but then he's like, oh, now they're the court.
Oh, well, okay. So
he counts them down. He's like,
Jolin has the twinism.
Yeah, and he's like, now they're the triplets. Now they're the twins.
Right.
Now
right.
Yeah.
But it was like, I guess, a humorous way to kill off a bunch of cannon fodder.
Yeah. Not use your single person privilege over there, Steven.
I mean, single person privilege. First time I've been accused of that one.
I'm just kidding. I shouldn't really joke about these things, but
yeah. So I the North group and all of that was, but I did think that the actual like fight up in the the Black Hold. Was that what it was called? The black the black something.
Yeah.
That was a little confusing to me, like how easy it was. It
Yeah.
seemed like maybe there'd be like hordes of dead guys, but there wasn't. And so there's some confusion as to like what were they really doing up there, like what's going on. I guess maybe the dead king had got what he wanted and was moving on. And then there was the whole the Loki's key type thing, right? That I guess we didn't even talk about that plot element, but they have that now. And that's a lore thing in the background, and the speculation is going to be used to like open this door of life and death. But as I'm reading it, I'm like, what is the door of life and death? And how, this is such a kind of out there concept. And some of, having read Broken Empire, I think really gave me an advantage in reading this because I understood a lot of what was going on. But I was thinking like, man, if I hadn't read Broken Empire and I was going to this book, I'd be fairly confused at some of this.
Yeah, you get more of the logistics on how this magic works kind of in Broken Empire.
Yeah.
But what sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was just, again, we've only read one book. I assume by the time we finish the trilogy, you'd have a more complete understanding.
Yeah, I remember Ryan talking about how this fleshed even more of the magic system out in Broken Empire. I think I remember Ryan saying that when he went back and reread Broken Empire after reading this, then Broken Empire made more sense because at least I think I remember that. Ryan, if I'm wrong, tell me.
I could see that with like the Silent Sister and her magic is, I think she was almost certainly mentioned in the Broken Empire. Yeah, you're getting different types of magic, and you see Sages. We're already familiar with Sages and the dream magic type stuff. So if you haven't read Broken Empire, he's the advisor guy in Krath City, and he's an important character in that trilogy. So we're getting different types of different flavors of the magic that we haven't seen before.
But my worst of the best does touch on something that you were talking about earlier.
Okay. So worst of the best, Josh, tell us the moment that soured something that you otherwise would really enjoyed.
Okay. This is the Moon Knight syndrome, as I think I'm going to label it.
Okay.
And it touches kind of based on how you were saying that they handled this a little bit too easily. And this is when all hope was lost. It's implied that John goes into like some sort of battle frenzy. And it's also implied that this was what he did on the field of battle that day that he earned his like moniker. And so he just kind of wakes up and sees like the enemies destroyed all around him, and he's like kind of covered in blood, and it's not his, but you don't see it happen. You just are told that it happened. And to me, it's kind of like in spoilers for Moon Knight, where he is pinned down, and then his alter ego takes over, and now he's successfully defeated everyone, but you don't see it happen. One time is cool to be what resolves like the entire conflict, and like the in some ways that was like the entire climax. Like it's just a little bit weird, like I feel like that's when you have it happen throughout the book, and then you see what actually happens at the climax, and in neither of these cases did you see that happen. So maybe it soured me because of my more negative take on Moon Knight's finale, but nonetheless that was my perception.
I also had this issue with Moon Knight. If you are wondering what we thought about Moon Knight, you can go back and listen to our review of Moon Knight and Doctor Strange too. But it didn't bother me as much in this book. Actually, maybe I can't tell you exactly why, but that did not stick out to me.
Yeah, maybe because I think I read it like the day after we did our Moon Knight review, so maybe it was just fresh on my mind when we went over it, or I don't know. Anyway,
yeah. All right, my worst of the best is kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with magic and Silent Sister, and learning more about how the magic in the world works, and about this curse that is connecting them. I thought that was all very interesting, and it's nice to see a different flavor of magic in the world. However, I didn't like how Garius or Garrus, or however you say his name, his uncle, right? Who is the twin of the conjoined twin, right? Of of the Silent Sister. I didn't like how this character is set up to be pretty important, I think, in the rest of the book and the rest of the series. However, you didn't actually see him on screen at all. You just got at the beginning, Jolan was thinking about how he like takes care of him every now and then and kind of wonders like what the deal is with him. And then slowly he just kind of comes to realize that like, oh, this guy has also got some magic or something's going on here. And so we don't know as the reader what's going on, but it's now super important, or it's hinted that it's going to get more and more important, but we've just never seen him on screen at all. The Silent Sister is cool because we've seen her at least a couple scenes, and she seems really mysterious and creepy, and we don't want to mess with her. She seems pretty what's the word? Pretty capable, right? Like she's gonna mess back if you try to do anything against her. My vocabulary is kind of leaving me at these right now. But Gargus, like we didn't even see one scene of him. I wish we had just seen one scene that made him seem like, oh, he's got this twisted old man's got some secret. What could it be? Type thing. We never got that.
Yeah, okay. I'm kind of glad you said that, because I was just wondering if I like missed a scene or like forgotten about a scene or like kind of skimmed read a scene that was important but that's good to know. Like I kind of just assumed I had missed something, but if he's just not there that much, then that's interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I assume they'll be going back to Champagne. It's a different name. I'm just going to call it Champagne. They're going back to Italy.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I read this as Italy. Is that kind of what you thought as well?
I need to look at the map. I mean, you could definitely look at the map and say exactly where it was, but the setting seems like Italy.
Yeah, the setting definitely.
Italy or southern France.
Kind of like a Renaissance era. Like
yeah. Nice and sunny. Nice place to live. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually it might have been southern France because they talk about going over into Roma, so they're probably not Italians unless were they further. Maybe they were further down the boot. We should probably just look at the map and we could know definitively.
It's more fun to talk about. It's like the same reason why you argue with your friends about something you can easily Google. It's just
right.
Fun.
Right.
So what would you give it as like a out of 10 score? What would you say?
I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. I can't remember. We did this on our book club conversation. I might have given it a 7.5. It was either a 7 or 7.5. I'm feeling like a 7.
I'm hovering between a 6.5 and a 7.
Okay.
I liked it. And I think that there's a lot of potential for the rest of the series. And so kind of how the rest of the series turns out, I could easily be convinced this is a 7 or even a 7.5 out of 10. If the rest of the series kind of drops the ball, then I mean, I don't know if that's a really fair way to judge it, but that's kind of where I'm at. Like somewhere, it was a good, solid book that's easy to recommend. It didn't fit exactly my taste, and that's all right. But yeah. Yeah,
I mean, this is a much easier recommend than obviously the Prince of Thorns and the Broken Empire. So if you're looking to start Lawrence, well, gosh, if you're still listening, you've probably read the books. That's probably a dumb thing to say at this point. All right. Thanks, Josh. See you later.
See you soon.